Hello friends, here's how to set up exact audio copy in order to rip perfect digital copies of your CD collection. I will go over the one-time setup, which will take between 10 and 20 minutes, as well as the ripping process. Both the setup and the steps that you take during the ripping process are required to create a byte perfect or exact copy of your CD. So please don't skip ahead of the video. If you find this video too long to sit through, however, you can read my written guide instead. That will be in the description below. On screen right now, I'm going to show you what EAC will output when you rip a CD. So we have FLAC files for each song. They also contain correct metadata with the track number, title, artist, and album. You will get a cover image, a cue sheet with gaps, a log file that will score 100%, and a M3U or playlist file. These three files, the cue, log, and M3U, are optional, and I will show you how to get them or not get them during the video. The requirements for EAC are essentially any version of Windows, including emulated versions, a CD or DVD-ROM drive, as well as a CD to copy. One of the settings used in this video is called Accurate Rip. In order to turn on Accurate Rip, one of the CDs that you put into your drive needs to be inside of their database. Because you won't know whether or not a CD is inside of the database until you start doing that specific step, what I would highly recommend is that you get between 1 and 3 of your most popular CDs and then put them beside you to follow along with this video. I will be doing this on version 1.6, however, any version released in the past decade will work the exact same way because they contain the exact same interface and settings. The only differences between the versions have been minor bug fixes. You can download EAC from their official website or through the description below, double-click the exe file, and then get to where I am right now by doing so. Then we're going to click on Next, then I agree. Choose the destination folder, then click Next again, and then once you get to the components page, you're going to want to turn off GD3 metadata, but you can leave all other plugins on. For the portion of this video that I'm going to be covering everything on, we only need FLAC, Accurate Rip, and CTDB plugin. However, the other plugins may prove helpful to you in the future, so I would recommend to just leave them on. The only one that will not be helpful is this one, GD3 metadata, because it costs $8 to use. Everything else is free. Once you're done, click Install. Once installed, click Finish, which will run EAC. EAC will open up in a few seconds. Once it opens up, you will see a setup wizard that I'm moving around on my screen right now. You want to make sure to click Cancel on this setup wizard. Once it's canceled, you can full screen EAC, and now we're going to get into the setup. First things first, we're going to enable Accurate Rip. To do so, make sure your drive is selected in the top left corner of EAC, then put your most popular CD into your CD drive. Once inside, turn your CD drive on so EAC can read the CD that's inside. If you're lucky, a pop-up box saying Configure Accurate Rip will show up on your screen. The pop-up box looks like this, basically the box that I'm moving around right now on screen. If this pop-up box does not show up for you, eject your CD and try a different one. Keep trying CDs until this pop-up box shows up. If it never does, you can skip this step, however your rips will not be perfect. You can always come back in the future if you find a CD that can make this pop-up box show up. So if ever it does, and for those of you that manage to get this to pop up right now, click Configure. Once you've clicked Configure, hit OK. Now we're going to focus on the EAC options. They're in the top left corner. These are essentially the settings of EAC. And to make this as easy as possible, I have put a legend on screen. As you can see, there is a green outline, which essentially means a required setting. There is an orange outline, which means a required setting that depends on your drive. And there is a pink outline that means an optional setting that I would recommend you have turned a certain way. These will be shown on screen beside each tab that I go through. So I'm going to click through the tabs themselves and click each setting. However, on the side of my screen, I will also have a completed tab with those outlines. We're going to go into EAC Options now. So click on EAC Options or press F9. Then go to Extraction. Make sure Fill Up Missing Offset Samples with Silence as well as Synchronize Between Tracks is turned on. Delete Leading and Trailing Blocks is turned off. These are required. The next two options are optional, however, I would recommend that they stay off. The last option, Error Recovery Quality, should be set to high. Anything else not covered you can set however you want. In general, which is the next tab we're going to, the first two options I would recommend are turned on, however they are optional. The third option, on unknown CDs, automatically access metadata database is required, so turn it on. The next options, display times using frames, ask before overriding files, show status dialog after extraction, and beep after extraction finished. These are all optional options, however, I would turn them off. The very last option, create log files always in English language, should be turned on. The reason is because if ever you plan on sharing your log file, the standard is to share them in English. Next, we go to Tools. In Tools, the first two options are optional, however, I would recommend that they are on. The next option, Create M3U Playlist on Extraction, must be turned on if you want an M3U playlist. If you do want a playlist, turn it on, then make sure that Write M3U Playlist with extended information, as well as Write M3U Playlist as UTF file is turned on. If you do not want an M3U, then turn it off. I do not want an M3U because I don't care for them, so I'm turning it off. Automatically write status report after extraction and append checksum to status report must be turned on. On extraction, start external compressors queued in the background should be turned off because it causes people's EACs to crash. Then the very last option, activate beginner mode, disable all advanced features, should be off. Anything else on this page can be set however you want. Then go to normalize. In normalize, make sure normalize is turned off. The reason is because this is essentially a permanent replay gain for those of you familiar with replay gain at all. Basically, it changes the volume of all of your files, and that basically makes it no longer a perfect copy. So obviously you want to have normalize turned off. Next, we go into file name. In file name, turn on use various artist naming scheme, and at the very bottom, make sure that replace spaces by underscores is turned off. Although replace spaces by underscores is not actually required to be off, I'm telling you to turn it off because it looks ugly and no other reason. In the various artist naming scheme, you can choose whatever naming scheme you want based on this legend that you can see here. I would specifically recommend that you choose something that does not have a directory inside of it, so you do not put a backward slash like it has in this example here. Do not do that. The reason is because the directory will go inside of your cue sheet. If you plan on creating a cue sheet, you will have to edit the cue sheet to remove the directory inside of it. So to make things a lot simpler, just don't put a directory inside of your file name. What I'm doing right now is I'm simply putting a period after track number, then I'm typing artist, then a hyphen, and that is how I want to have mine set up. However, you can choose whatever you want. We're going to go to two other optional tabs now. First is character replacements. Here in character replacements, as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different replacements for specific characters. These characters are things that Windows cannot use. So for example, it can't use the question mark. And if you wanted to have a question mark instead, you would have to stick the Japanese question mark into the character replacement box. That is what I'm doing now. So I'm essentially changing these character replacements with ones that look the same but are not the actual symbol itself. And the reason I do this is because I prefer to have something that kind of looks the same instead of something that is completely different, like a hyphen. You can do the same thing. These will be in the description below, but if you don't want to do this at all, you're welcome to just leave it the way it is or change the replacements to something else. Like you could make every single one of the replacements an X if you cared to do so, but this is what I'm having replaced right now. Once this is done, we're going to go on to the last optional tab, which is directory. In directories, if you click on use this directory and then you select a directory, what will happen is everything will be saved to that directory. So every time you extract all your files, they will go directly to this directory and EAC will not ask you to save your files. I much prefer this, however other people might not. And to make things easy on you, if you choose ask every time, it will save your files every time and it will ask you to save them, and if you choose use this directory, it will just save them automatically. So it's up to you. Choose a directory that you want, and then once that's done, click OK. We are now going to focus on drive options. So click on drive options or press F10. Click OK. Then go to extraction method. In extraction method, click secure mode. In secure mode, make sure that accurate stream feature is turned on as well as drive caches audio data. The third option, drive is capable of C2 error information, is turned off. If you're having a lot of trouble ripping a damaged CD and you can't get it to rip properly, you can turn on either paranoid mode or burst mode. However, both of these modes will no longer create a perfect copy. So only do so if you need to get the files from your CD because it won't rip any other way, and then turn it back to secure mode once you're done. Next, we're going to go to drive. In drive, click auto detect read command now, and once it's detected, which it just detected for me, look at these four options. The fourth option, CD text read capable drive, I'm turning on because my drive is capable. If yours is, turn it on. If you don't know, leave it off. The other three options you can just leave off. However, if in the future you rip your CDs and all you hear is static, then turn on big endian. And if, for example, you have your stereo channels swapped during extraction, you can turn on the swap channels option. The spin up drive before extraction option should just be left off because it causes more problems than it fixes. In offset and speed, the first half of this entire section should be gray. Why is it gray? Because you set up accurate rip. If you did not set up accurate rip, it would not be gray. And if that is the case, then you can skip this specific tab. However, if you did enable accurate rip, the first half is gray, which is great. Then the bottom half, you want to make sure that use accurate rip with this drive is turned on, allow speed reduction during extraction is turned on, and then if you know your drive is capable of doing it, turn on overread into lead in and lead out. Then we're going to go to gap detection. In gap detection, change the detection method to A. Change the detection accuracy to secure. This should work for almost every drive, however, it's possible your drive will stall while detecting gaps. If your drive stalls while detecting gaps, come back into this and change the detection method from A to either B or C. It should work then. Once done, click OK. Now we're going to go into compression options. In compression options, we're going to go to external compression. In external compression, you're going to click Use External Program for Compression. In the parameter passing scheme, you're going to scroll down to User Defined Encoder. Then you're going to click on the Use File extension and you're going to type FLAC. Once you've typed FLAC, make sure that you choose the path for wherever FLAC.exe is saved. If yours is somewhere else though, make sure that you select it. In the additional command line options box, you're going to paste something that is in the description below. It's a huge paragraph of stuff that might not make sense to you, but essentially it will correctly tag your files for you. The bitrate does not matter. Change it to whatever you want, because for whatever reason, the actual bitrate here does not do anything to the actual quality of your files, but you can set it however you want. Then choose delete wave after compression, as well as use CRC check, turn off add ID3 tag, and choose check for external program return code. Then we're going to go to ID3 tag. In ID3 tag, untick everything except for the very last option. And then in the naming scheme, name it however you want, but because I don't really care, I'm just going to name it cover. So every time it creates an image in my folder, it's just going to name it cover. So again, make sure everything is turned off in this, except for write cover image into extraction folder, choose a naming scheme for your cover, and then click OK. Then we're going to go into Metadata Options. Luckily, there's literally one thing that you have to set up here. So open it up, go to Metadata Provider, and then choose QTools Database. Once it's chosen, click Show Options of the selected database. It's up to you how you set it up. You can choose to search it fast, or you can search extensively, which would basically give you every option available. And then for covers, if you never want a cover, you can click None. And if you want a large or a small one, you can click it the way that it is. In my case, I'm just going to leave it the way it is, then I'm going to click OK. Then, once I'm done with that, I'm going to click OK again, and that will save my metadata options. We are now completely done with setting up EAC. You will never have to do that again. Now that we're done setting up EAC for good, here's how to rip every one of your CDs. Please keep in mind you must follow the same 3 steps every time you rip a CD. Those 3 steps are as follows: Action, detect gaps; Action, create Q sheet; multiple WAV files with gaps non-compliant; and then Action, test and copy selected tracks compressed. I'm going to go over that slowly now for those of you that want to know how to do everything. First things first, we're going to go with tagging. Tagging is not required for a perfect copy, but it's better to just do so inside of EAC. Double-click each of the fields and type whatever you want in order for it to be filled out. However, if you want to have it automatically filled out, if you're lucky enough for it to be inside of the database, click on Get CD Information from Metadata Provider, drop this little drop-down menu, click on QTools Database since that's what you chose, then click on it. If you click on it and it says an error message, invalid email address, click Yes to edit your email address and then type literally anything you want. So you could literally type what I just typed and then click OK. Once that's done, re-click on the button and then click Yes. This will allow you to access the CTDB metadata lookup box. What this does is it shows you every release that is similar to the pressing of your CD, and then you select the correct release, which will give you the correct tags, and essentially just fills everything out for you and makes your whole life easier. It will also give you an image if you want a specific image, and you can select that in the box as well. So because my CD is this specific version, I'm clicking it, it changes my tags for me, and then I just verify that none of the tags are wrong, because that could happen from time to time. And once my CD is tagged, either manually or automatically, I then want to go to Actions, then want to click Detect Gaps or press F4, and this gap column here where it says Unknown will change. Something specific about gaps: when you detect gaps on one of your CDs, one of your tracks, more than likely the first one, but any of them can have this happen to it, it might turn red. And if it turns red, that means you have an HTOA or a hidden track in the pre-gap of that specific track. Long story short, it's a different kind of hidden track than the ones that are conventionally on CDs, and they're harder to rip than normal. You can't do it the conventional way. And the guide itself for ripping an HTOA track is almost as long as setting up EAC itself. So if you do have that happen to you, there is a guide in the description below, a written one that you can check out. But it's very rare, so most people will never have this happen to them. I've ripped over 4,000 CDs and never seen it. And also some people's drives can't even detect it. So anyway, if you do have one of your tracks turn red while detecting the gaps, then read the HTOA guide in the description below. Otherwise, don't worry about it, just move on to the next step. So once this is done detecting gaps, it's going to change this gap column to a different amount of numbers, and those numbers basically show the gap between each track. So if it ever says unknown, you know you haven't detected the gaps yet, but in this case, now it changed from unknown to these, and now we're going to click Action. And in Action, we're just going to make sure that append gaps to previous track is turned on. This is for first-time rippers. If you've never done this before, make sure this is turned on, but once you turn it on once, it should stay like that forever. Then, now that we've detected gaps, we're going to create our Q sheet. We're going to click Multiple WAV files with gaps non-compliant. It is then going to create the Q sheet for us. However, if you do not want a Q sheet, then you don't click this step specifically. It does not affect the rip quality not to add a Q sheet to it, so you simply just skip this specific step. However, if you're going to share your file somewhere, you need to include a cue sheet, a working one specifically, so make sure that you follow that step if that is the case. Once the cue sheet is created, go ahead and click on Actions one last time, and this time click Test and Copy Selected Tracks. The reason we choose compressed is so that it gives us FLAC files. However, if you really want WAV files, click uncompressed, and then your RIP will start. Your RIP will start in this little extraction audio data box, and it will tell you how long remaining for your RIP to finish. In my case, because this specific CD is really damaged, my remaining time is 4.5 hours, but yours might be only 20 minutes.